Hello and welcome to our midday roundup of what's making news and headlines, memes going viral, being talked about on the webs, trending as it were. The House Judiciary Committee on Wednesday approved a bill that would legalize marijuana at the federal level. Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act, or MORE, would remove marijuana from Schedule I of the Controlled Substances Act, where it is classified alongside heroin and LSD. The bill was approved by a vote of 24 to 10. Legislation would also allow states to create their own policies, require federal courts to clear low-level marijuana convictions, and place a 5% tax on marijuana products. The proposed tax would establish funds for programs designed to help people disproportionately affected by the war on drugs, and this would include job training, legal assistance, and substance abuse treatment. Quoting Jerry Nadler, Democrat out of New York, he's the House Judiciary Committee chairman, "Far too long we have treated marijuana as a criminal justice problem instead of a matter of personal choice and public health. Whatever one's views are on the use of marijuana for recreational or medicinal purposes, arresting, prosecuting, and incarcerating users at the federal level is unwise and unjust." So basically, the war on drugs, which has been lengthy and costly, has locked up multiple generations of disproportionately African American men in the for-profit prison system. So there is incentive to keep locking people up behind bars for longer and longer sentences because there's money to be made in that. So the bill has a high chance of approval in the full House, where Democrats have control. It's unclear when such a vote would take place. The proposal would be less likely to pass the Republican-controlled Senate. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican out of Kentucky, opposes marijuana legalization. But interestingly, skipping ahead, among young Republicans, millennial Republicans, who you would think would be conservative, in line with their party, 71% of them said that they are in favor of legalizing. These are young Republicans, not young Democrats, Republicans who are millennial aged. And we'll get more to that here in a minute, but interesting to see the generational divide between the senator out of Kentucky, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, and those who are young enough to be his grandchildren. So, quoting Representative Ken Buck, the Republican out of Colorado, "I don't think a majority of the Republicans will support this bill. It's even less likely that the Senate would take it up. Therefore, I would just suggest that we deal with other bills that we can get much larger bipartisan support on." Now, if the bill were to arguably make it all the way to the president's desk, he would have to sign it, and he's actually been on record saying that it's more of a states' rights thing, that he'd rather leave states up to make their own calls on legalization. 11 states in the District of Columbia have all legalized marijuana for recreational use. Michigan voted to make it legal last year. I believe that goes into effect December 1st.
Yeah.
In like 9 days.
Yeah, it goes into effect. I read that the first dispensary that will be selling it recreationally on December 1st is in Ann Arbor. I don't know if there are any other dispensaries that have gotten their license.
Well, we know that 80% of towns, municipalities, villages, townships, cities are opting to not be places where you can buy it. The 20% that presumably would be open to having dispensaries open for recreational use, we don't know what those are yet, except for apparently Ann Arbor.
Right, Ann Arbor.
2/3 of Americans, 2 out of 3 people, support legalization, according to Pew data. Now, the opposition to marijuana has fallen from 52% in 2010 to just 32% today. That's a significant drop in just 9 years. Well, almost 10. So here's how it breaks down along age lines. Millennials, almost 8 in 10 support it. Among my generation, almost 7 out of 10. The boomers, who would have been, old enough for Woodstock, surprisingly, just 63%. And the silent generation, or greatest generation, 35%. Now, if an American leans left, identifies as left-leaning, 8 in 10 believe marijuana should be legal. Those who lean right only 55%, but still a majority.
Still a majority across nearly all demographics.
Right. So about that cost of the war on drugs that I was talking about, between 2001 and 2010, police made more than 8.2 million arrests for marijuana possession. That costs about $3.6 billion per year, according to an ACLU report. This breaks down to about $4,400 of tax dollars spent for every arrest. During that period, marijuana possession arrests accounted for nearly half of all drug arrests. Remember what I was saying earlier about multiple generations of predominantly African American men locked up on low-level to mid-level drug charges. The same ACLU report pointed out the significant racial disparity in marijuana policing. It's found that on average, a black person is 3.7 times more likely to be arrested for possession than a white person. In the worst offending counties across the country, blacks were over 10 to 30 times more likely to be arrested than white residents in the same county. And black men get sentences that are 19% longer than their white counterparts. So lawmakers in favor of legislation hope this will ensure that people of color and those who are economically disadvantaged are participating in the industry. So obviously we are living in tumultuous times. The younger generation likes to talk about the world being a dumpster fire. People at each other's throats politically, people overeducated and underemployed, people unemployed, uprisings around the world, totalitarianism going up around the world. And amid all this, it makes you wonder if in more peaceful, calm times, if this would be a tougher sell. But so much is going on in the world that, and a whole generation's getting left behind economically, that it'd be interesting to be able to compare marijuana sort of being piecemeal passed state, federal, against in a more prosperous, peaceful time where we weren't at each other's throats. Would it have the same chance? I'm curious about that. Anyway, thank you for joining us here in the midday, and we will see you back here on Monday.